the lead up into Gold Coast Marathon, the last few weeks were not the most ideal. After my last long run session, about 3 weeks out from the marathon, my lower back became quite tight and sore, and that was causing me issues basically from that point onwards until the last few days, I guess, before the marathon. Long story short, my lower body inherently weak, and so at the back end of those long runs, my back was actually starting to take some of the load of the running, which was causing it to become quite uncomfortable, quite sore, and quite tight. And then bundle in the fact that I went to Paris for the Nike Breaking 4 event, basically 2 weeks before the marathon. Also did not help, sitting on a plane or planes for 40 plus hours, and then dealing with any form of potential jet lag that I had either going there or coming back, jam-packed days, and just, I guess, not ideal conditions for the last few weeks of marathon training. But I knew that going to Paris was the opportunity of a lifetime, and I wasn't going to pass it up because I was running a marathon in a few weeks' time. And so in those last 3 weeks of training, I did about 60 kilometers total, I think. The week leading into the marathon, I wasn't exactly excited about running the marathon. If I could sum it up, I was probably excited for it to be over. I think there's a lot of things in this block that didn't go to plan. There's also a lot of things in this block that I said I would do and didn't do. So I was a little bit frustrated by that. And so when I talked to my coach, Andy, on the Wednesday or Thursday before the race, sort of told him how I was feeling. And as our conversation went on, I then became more and more excited to run the race. And subsequently, when I arrived on the Gold Coast on the Friday, picked up my bib, saw Dave, saw Connor, and saw a whole bunch of people running the race, I got more and more excited. Anyone coming from outside of Queensland to run the Gold Coast Marathon knows that the weather is going to be different to what you've been training in. So I guess for us in Melbourne and Victoria, the weather had been significantly colder during our training than it was going to be on race day. And that was something that I knew, and so I tried to, where I could, run later in the day to get some form of heat acclimatization, I guess. Race morning rolls around, 17 degrees, 85% humidity. Luckily, it's overcast, so I knew it was going to be a hot day. The race plan was obviously to try and run under 3 hours, which means holding a 4:15 per kilometer pace for 42.195 kilometers. And luckily I had Sam's cousin Isaac, who is he's a 3:02 marathoner. He's been chasing sub 3 for a few years now, and he had himself and a few of his mates from Brisbane, and we were going to sort of pack up and take on the marathon together.
What's the prediction? 2:59.59.
So as we start the race and approach the first aid station, which is probably about 3.5 kilometers in, I'm already sweating like crazy. And so from that first aid station, I am already throwing water over myself to try and keep myself cool. Roll through the 5K in 21:21. At about the 6 or 7K mark, I get dropped by Isaac and his mates. They're running just a little bit faster than what I wanted to be running. They were sort of running about 4:10 pace, and ideally I sort of wanted to stay as close to 4:14, 4:15 as possible. And so I let those guys go, and at that point I'm already assessing, do I come off 4:15 pace because it's already so hot and I know that I'm going to be sweating a shit ton, and it's not going to look pretty towards the end of the race. I decided at that point to push through to 10 kilometers and then reassess how I'm feeling at that point. So I rolled through 10Ks in 42:37. So just after the 10K mark, Dan Green, who was a friend of mine, catches up to me. He'd been messaging me before the race and was saying, I'll pace you through sub 3 hours. And so he finds me, and I think at that point during the race where mentally I'm maybe already struggling, seeing someone like that seeing a familiar face and knowing that Dan's like a 2:42 marathoner, and he would be able to sort of help me battle that phase of the marathon was exactly what I needed in that moment. He basically just said to me, what pace do you want to run? You just look at the back of me and we'll tackle this thing. So I'm basically at this point feeling really good, feeling nice and settled at the 4:15 pace. The weather for the most part is sort of sticking around the same, if not slightly increasing by a little bit. But as we are heading down towards Miami, I see my mate Dave Stoff, who's trying to run 2:45, give each other a little high five on the turnaround point.
Go, Dave. Go, baby.
And everything's feeling pretty good in that moment. We roll through halfway in 1:29:43. At about the 26K mark, Dan asked me, what is my output out of 10? And I sort of say about a 6. Things are feeling pretty comfortable at this point. From a nutrition point of view, I'm basically hitting every single aid station, getting either water or electrolytes. Water's either going over me or I'm drinking electrolytes. And then I'm also doing a Morton 160 gel every 25 minutes or so. At about 28 Ks, we catch back up with Isaac and a few of his friends who are still holding on. And then between him and I and Dan, we sort of pack up for the next 4 or 5 Ks or so. At 32, 33 Ks, whenever that little hill is that you go over to then go and do the last sort of 5K out and back. Once I got over the top of that little hill, my legs were fried. Basically just had no juice left in the tank. They were really tight. I guess, yeah, you could say I'd hit the wall. I guess I tried my best for the next few kilometers to sustain the pace needed to continue on and hit sub 3, but I guess if you've ever personally hit that point in the marathon where your legs just don't have any go in them, it is very hard to try and go any faster than whatever pace it is that you can sustain. And so after a few kilometers, I realized that the sub 3 marathon goal was slipping away. And at that point, Dan asked me, he's like, do you want me to stick with you or do you want me to go and run with Isaac and help him get to sub 3 hours? So I say, I'm good. You just go run with him, do whatever you can to help him get over the finish line under 3 hours. Because he was in much better shape than I was. Those last few kilometers of the marathon were potentially some of the most enjoyable that I've ever had in a marathon before. I guess physically and mentally, I'm quite hurt. My body's sore. My ego's sore because I've let go of this goal that I've been trying to chase for so long. But I'm thankful that I can be out there running, having somewhat of an enjoyable experience. My body was able to get me through 3/4 of the race at marathon pace. And those last 2 kilometers as you were coming back towards the finish line were pretty grim, just seeing the amount of people on the side of the road in the recovery position who have unfortunately succumbed to the heat or the marathon. And so those last few kilometers, I'm just soaking it all in. There's this one guy who actually, he comes up to me in the last kilometer and he says like, hey Mack, like I really enjoy watching your content. I haven't had the last best 4 weeks of marathon training and I've sort of been watching your videos as a way to, I guess, give me some motivation for these last few weeks. And I think in that moment, it's nice to realize that the things that I'm doing or have done in the running space are having a positive impact on someone else's experience. And I think to get to have that moment at the end of the marathon was really quite special. We were still able to cross the finish line in 3 hours and 5 minutes and 53 seconds, which, according to my notes, was a 8-minute and 43-second PB. So on a pretty tough day, still managed to come away with a massive PB and crossing the finish line, I was absolutely stoked. If anything, although I wasn't able to break my goal and run under 3 hours, I think in that moment crossing the finish line, realizing that running is bigger than just hitting a goal time. It's about the people you meet, the experiences you have, and the memories that you're able to make through this incredible sport. And so a word I would use to sum up the weekend would be grateful. So there's the Gold Coast Marathon series wrapped up. Thank you very much for your support during this period. It's been a really fun one to put together. The support has been incredible, and I think, like I've sort of mentioned, just being on the Gold Coast and having people come up to you and say they watch the videos, they love the content, or they've been inspired by X, Y, and Z, really just makes me more motivated to create more content and inspire others around the world to get into this beautiful sport that we love called running. I'm a week post-marathon now. My body is still pretty sore. Hoping to get out for my first run back in the next couple of days, which I'm sure will feel very good. So until then, appreciate the support, and I'll see you guys in the next video.